You are listening to the Neurocareers Doing the Impossible podcast with Dr. K, episode number 26. Dear Neurocareers podcast listeners, today we continue our fascinating journey into the careers related to neuroscience and neurotechnologies. Today we have an amazing guest, an occupational therapist who owns her own practice and works with neurotechnologies to help people, Dorothee Zuleger. Welcome, Dorothee. It's such a pleasure to have you on our podcast. Thank you so much for coming. Can you please introduce yourself and also tell us where are you talking to us from? I see the pictures behind you, beautiful pictures with the brain and neuron. So tell us everything about that.
Yes. So thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm super excited. I love talking about neuroscience and everything neuro-related. So I think we'll have fun chatting. If I get off on a tangent, you just let me know and have to rein me back in. So my name is Dorothee Zuleger. I'm an occupational therapist, and I have a outpatient neuro practice in Orlando, Florida.
Yes. And where are you talking to us from right now? Is this your office?
Yes. Right now, I'm in the office in one of our rooms where we do evaluations. So on the wall, you see some brain pictures and images. And I'm at the office.
So not only you are an occupational therapist, but you also have your practice. And I would like us to talk more about that and what it takes to have your own practice that deals also with neurotechnologies. But let's start step by step. First of all, yes,
okay.
Occupational therapy. Can you introduce to those who might not know much about that, what is occupational therapy, and what was your path of becoming an occupational therapist?
So an occupational therapist is basically a healthcare provider that helps clients return or achieve the highest level of function. So whether they have a disability or an injury, we find ways or try to come up with ways to help them do the things in life that they want to do again. So whether it's a hobby, whether it's things they have to do in daily life, like dressing and bathing, whatever it might be, or driving. So part of the Neuro Hub is a driving program here. So we teach clients how to drive again after a brain injury, spinal cord injury, stroke, whatever it might be. And we use adaptive technologies for that and help them get back on the road to be independent. The way I got into it, so this is actually my second career. My first career, I was in film production. And so a totally different field. When the economy started going down in 2007 and 2008, I decided to go back to school. And I was really interested in languages and thought speech therapy sounds really interesting. And we have a friend who's a speech therapist, and she said, absolutely not. You are not a speech therapist. You need to look into OT. And at that time, I had no idea what OT was. So she set me up with a clinician in a pediatric practice. And the therapist was awesome. She kicked her shoes off. She was in her socks. She played with shaving cream with the kid. And it's like, oh, this you get paid for this? This is amazing. So I fell in love with it. I went to school. I went to Advent Health University and got my undergrad degree there. And then they had a master's program shortly after, which I attended then. So got my degrees there. And then I worked in a hospital-based outpatient setting for 5 years in Neuro Rehab. And once I had my kids, I needed more flexibility in my work schedule to do all the mom duties of picking up and having sick kids. And I said, well, I can just start my own little business on the side and see some clients. And out of this little bit of business is little practice now with 3 clinicians. And Yeah, back to working full time.
Yes, I think this is something that many people can relate to when they're starting their business. They're thinking, oh, maybe it's just a side money, just a little income, but it often becomes, again, a full-time job.
Yep.
Yeah, so very interesting story from film production to occupational
Yeah.
therapy. What was the main change that you needed maybe to overcome transitioning from one field to another?
It was the clinical aspect, I think. In both fields, you have the creativity. You need to be creative and imagine and come up with problem solving strategies. But it was the clinical that I had no idea about. So that was all new to me. I had no idea about illness, diseases, injuries, the body. I found it very interesting right off the bat, but I had to learn everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that many people are struggling a little bit to understand the difference between physical therapy and occupational therapy. Maybe can you give a little bit distinction between those two and what particular strengths that occupational therapy has?
Yeah, good question. So you're right. A lot of people struggle finding the difference and distinguishing it. So an occupational therapist focuses a lot on life skills, on the things, the tasks we want to return to doing. A physical therapist, I would say, is more biomechanical. So they might focus on a shoulder, the elbow, the knee, or gait pat. They do a lot with gait patterns, which I personally don't. Some OTs are really good with gait and balance. That's something I don't focus on. Um, but I consider myself somewhat of a closet PT because I love biomechanics. So I love working on just the shoulder, just the arm. So I feel like I can be both. I mean, there's really no rules to it. In the end, I'm working on the arm in order to help my client brush their teeth again.
And you're talking about the skills that people need to acquire in order to get back to their work, to their daily activities. And you mentioned Advent Health University. Actually, it's where I teach. Research methods class. So
Oh,
I'm
yay.
familiar with that place very well. And also, I had a tour in the OT facilities. And I think it was Angela who showed me different tools and different activities that people can perform there. So everything that is related to daily life. And my question is where the neuroscience is coming from here. How is that
Aha!
related?
Yes.
Yes, to
I work in a neuro setting. So my clients have neurologic injuries or illnesses. I would say the main caseload that we have is clients who suffered a stroke. So, and that's where it starts with the neuroscience. So I've always been very curious. I always question things. I like to push the status quo a little bit and see is this really it? Is there more behind it? So once I started my own practice, I could do those things where I didn't just have to stick to one treatment approach. I could start investigating, like maybe there's something else out there that would help work better. Maybe we just need to try something totally crazy for once. And as long as it's safe, obviously. But, I had that freedom and I got more and more curious and I got more and more into the neurotech and brought in some gamification for clients. And I just saw how clients started to thrive on treatments with gamifications versus just knocking out some repetitions. It's the same movement, but now we're playing a game. We're becoming competitive. We're engaging into a task that's fun. We started creating a game board on the wall so clients could compete against each other and see each other's scores. And it just became a fun thing to do in therapy, versus just, okay, we're going to move your arm up and down, hundreds of times. So we were able to achieve the high repetitions and saw positive outcomes. And I started to dig deeper into anything that's out there. I feel like we know very little about the brain right now. We think we know a lot, but I think in 5 years, we're going to realize we knew nothing. There's so much to explore. So I constantly immerse myself. It sounds really nerdy, but I constantly immerse myself into anything brain related and scientific and learn about it. And I have fun doing it. So to me, that's kind of like my downtime, reading about the brain, learning more about the brain and different techniques.
Yeah. And what I see the creativity in you. And probably it's the same that brought you to the field of video production. Yes, something to create something and find new ways and play with it.
Yes.
Yes, and creating games for your clients when they can compete against each other. At the same time, promoting neuroplasticity, you were talking about achieving the high number of repetitions, yes,
Correct.
which is one of the main principles of experience-dependent changes,
Yep.
yes, that we can create. So through the game, through utilization of technologies, we can definitely achieve. Plus, using creativity that you are using.
Yep, I agree.
If we are using neurotechnologies, we can see certain changes that are happening in the brain. We are not blind by just doing certain things and not observing how the brain is changing. So we receive information about that. And speaking about those changes that we're inducing, what was the most fascinating thing for you that you observed in your clients? Maybe that change in their neuroplasticity that reflected in their outcomes. And maybe you can remember some clinical case that really can showcase what happened, showcase that change that occurred.
As we already mentioned, repetition is one of the things that is really important in a neuro rehab setting. That's one of the things we focus on. But probably the most fascinating thing I've experienced in regards to treatments is visual imagery. So far, in school, you learn all the different treatment techniques and handling techniques, but visual imagery, it might be mentioned, but it's not really talked about or taught to us. So when I started using brain-computer interface technology and utilized the visual imagery, that's when I saw amazing changes. And we would see them pretty quick. So for example, we had a gentleman with global aphasia, which is he has a hard time understanding what we're saying, like comprehending what we're saying. He hears the words, but to make sense of it was hard for him. And then it was also hard for him to express his thoughts. He came to us for an intensive program, which is 3 weeks, 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. And every day we did at least 1 to 2 hours of BCI. And after, I want to say about a week, all of a sudden he was born and raised in Germany. And I was born and raised in Germany. So I would always, I'm playful. So I would always play around with it and throw some German terms out. And all of a sudden he started speaking in sentences. And he had a stroke over 5 years ago. And it was just such a beautiful, heartwarming moment to see the wife, to see him in tears, that all of a sudden a sentence comes out that he's worked for so hard for so many years. And I 100% contribute that to the brain-computer interface with visual imagery, where we use the power of the mind to strengthen those connections.
Yes, that is an amazing result. And we know, even from the research that is coming out, that BCIs can be very helpful for chronic stroke patients.
Yes.
And that is the main strength that they have. And it looks like, at least even from our study that we were conducting with the review of the literature that is currently available, that the main strengths comes from BCIs utilizing most of the main principles of experience-based neural plasticity and looking compared with all other strategies that are currently being used. So can you tell us a little bit more about BCI and your first experience working with it? What type of BCI it is? Maybe a little bit more. You mentioned motor imagery, but maybe you can give a little bit more information about it.
In short, BCI is basically a treatment technique where we use the brain activity in the undamaged areas of the brain to help facilitate motor recovery or neuroplastic changes. So the long version of BCI is a client wears a headset with electrodes that read the brain waves in different areas of the brain, and we provide the client with a screen that has an avatar or an image on it of a hand moving, for example. And the client will then also have another device for feedback, whether it's a functional electrical stimulation to move the arm or a robotic orthotic on the hand. So once the client is asked on the screen to visualize moving the hand, if the brain is activated correctly, the headset will read the brain waves, translate it, and provide feedback by either opening the robotic hand or triggering an eSTIM signal. So the client knows, I just did that right with my brain. So we have that feedback loop, which is really important. And for us clinicians, I feel like it's such a powerful tool because we actually work on the root cause. We work on the brain versus just on an arm and address the issue at its root cause.
Yes, thank you so much for this explanation. You mentioned that the avatar that people see on the screen, they can see their hands. So basically, you were working with that patient on facilitation of hand movements. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And at the same time, you saw the improvement in his speech.
In his language center, yes.
In his language center. So how do you explain that?
I think so. His right side is affected. So the damage was on the left side of his brain. So we focused a lot on his right side with the BCI. So lots of visualization. So what I think happened is he just really strengthened either the surrounding areas of the damaged side or in the ipsilateral side that he tapped into the connections there that are available for output, and that he was able to just strengthen signals and strengthen areas that were weakened for the past 5 years.
Absolutely. And I was very curious how you explained that, because we also noticed in the literature, people are writing about this phenomena when they're working, let's say, only upper extremities on the hands, and then they see an improvement in posture, in gait, and lower extremities, which they even didn't expect.
Yes.
And one of the explanations that you talked about, it's again comes from those principles of experience-dependent neural plasticity, is that transference.
Yes.
That if we facilitate one function, then
other things will come along.
Yes, and this is so evident when working specifically with brain-computer interfaces.
Yes, it's all connected, and it's so much fun. I could talk about it all day long.
Okay, now let's talk some more. So that was your first experience with brain-computer interfaces. And I know that you experimented with other brain-computer interface methodologies. Yeah, so it wasn't just one type. You also started working with some others. So can you tell us about that journey and what was the difference? And again, what results did you see?
So the principles are the same. So it's really just, it's set up a little bit different. One of the pieces of technology, I used functional eSTEM as a feedback. The technology I currently use uses a robotic orthotic where it looks like a splint, so to say, that you put on the hand. And if you activate the brain correctly, it will open the hand. And if you relax the brain correctly, the hand will close. So it's just a different way to provide feedback. And I feel like I wouldn't say there's one better or worse. It's really user preference, I think. It comes down to what's comfortable for the user, for the client. What does a client, click better with? Some clients really like the eSTEM. They like that tactile feedback, the buzzing, the feeling of the muscles contracting. Other clients got nothing out of it. They love seeing, whoa, my hand is opening. The machine is making my hand open. They really enjoy that part. So I feel like the technology is the principles the same.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this explanation. And again, you are doing it all in your own practice. And I would like to talk more about that because I personally, I'm very impressed by people who are starting their own practice, starting their own business, establishing their own companies. I think it takes courage to do that. Sometimes it's more smooth, like you said, you started and it started developing and then probably you smoothly transitioned, hopefully smoothly. Some people just decide to go and do it, but I think it's very admirable. So, can you tell us more? What did it take for you to really establish your own practice with the neurotechnology, and what maybe was the main challenge that you needed to overcome?
Okay, so part one of your question, what did it take? So
Yes.
it was a really slow start. The first 6 months were slow, where I just had a small caseload, but that's what I was looking for at the time. I wanted to start slow. I never imagined myself having a big practice with a BCI program and a driving program. That all just kind of happened as the business grew. I saw the need. Clients had that need for driving rehab. So I said, well, I'm an occupational therapist. I should be able to address this. So let's figure it out. Same with the BCI, where I felt like, well, new technologies. We know that there's good treatment approaches out there for neuro rehab, but we still have clients with chronic stroke. They're 5-6 years out. They still have that need to get better and to improve. What else is out there? So everything was slow and smooth and one thing after another. So what did it take? I don't know. Evolved naturally, I want to say. And the hardest part, I think, was to trust myself in the process. I would constantly question myself and my abilities, like a little bit of the imposter syndrome where I'm like, can I even do that? Am I even good enough? Can I even charge somebody for doing that? Why would people pay for this? Am I a fraud? Where you just constantly, like an artist, you question your own work constantly. But I feel like at the same time, that's what made me become better and stronger because I constantly would go home and research more and try to become better because I was in doubt of how good am I.
Yes, yes, and you are not alone. Everybody who starts their business and just even new career have those doubts, and especially people with who are artists, they doubt all the time. That's a part of the process. So
Absolutely.
and what helped you to overcome those doubts? You said that, of course, you were going and studying more, but maybe, some mindset change that helped, that happened. So what was that?
I think once we started getting busier and growing and more and more clients would come, and clients would not just come locally, but all of a sudden we started getting clients out of different states and different countries that wanted to fly in. That's when I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe we are doing something that's good and that helped. I mean, I will always have that feeling of doubting myself to a certain degree, but I embrace it now. I accept it. It's just part of who I am.
Yes, yeah, I agree. It's very important to really to become in peace with who who you are.
Yeah.
I think that's the main part, and then you had that external validation that
Yeah,
you
exactly. And I tell clients, I don't know it all. I'm not the best out there. I don't claim to be. This is what I do. And if there's anything you would like me to research and look into, then by all means bring it up and I'll find out more for you. So I'm open to it. And I know that there's tons to learn.
yeah, absolutely. And how did neurotechnology change your practice? What would your practice be without it, if you even can imagine that?
I think a lot of the success that we have is due to neurotechnology because clients really enjoy using it and they see results. And a lot of times we see results faster than with traditional neuro rehab techniques. The neurotechnologies in combination with the program that we designed with high repetitions, high intensity, and that program is hard to find in a traditional setting. So I think the neurotechnology helped us set ourselves apart by creating intensive programs.
Mhm. Yes, thank you. And what inspires you to look for new solutions, to really bring innovations to your practice, to your clients?
It's really my clients. I just want to help them get better. I look at each client individually, so they all might have a right side stroke, but I don't compare them in any which way. They're always totally different to me. And I just love investigating how their brain works and processes the environment, the information. And that, because I'm kind of a curious George type person, that leads me to digging deeper of what else can I do? I was always the kid that would ask, well, why? But why? And drive everybody crazy. And in school in Germany, I remember I would ask my teachers, especially in religion class, I would question everything they said just to kind of drive them crazy a little bit. It's like, well, sure. Do you have proof for that? Well, where does it say that? It was just fun for me. And I think that's just my personality and part of me. And that's what creates that digging deeper for clients and keep pushing forward and finding new technologies and treatments for clients. So it all comes down to wanting to help a client get better and return to the highest level of independence possible.
Absolutely. And what do you see that maybe is still missing in this field of neurotechnologies in terms of helping people to get back to their function? And maybe what do you want to see in this field because of that, maybe 10, 20 years from now, or as soon as possible?
I feel like there's a lot of really good rehab out there, a lot of really talented, great clinicians, but I feel like we're stuck in a rut almost. It's the same type of treatment techniques over and over. And if I had a magic wand, I would give every facility access to neurotechnology so they can customize the program for each client. Some clients might work fantastic when you give them traditional treatment methods. Other clients need gamification. Other clients need brain computer interface. I would just love to have this technology available to everybody out there in all settings. And I would love for clinics, inpatient, outpatient, to all start looking more into neurotechnology for the sake of recovery or for their clients.
So you see the future where everybody has possibility to utilize neurotechnologies in
Yes,
rehabilitation.
yes. The problem right now is that it's very expensive and it's new. So I'm sure a lot of clinics are still waiting for more research and before they make large investments. But I really think that's where the trend is where we're gonna go towards in the future. More and more neuro rehab with the higher technology. And it doesn't mean you can't use traditional therapy as well. It's all about finding the right thing. You make it fit one client. You don't try to fit the client in the therapy. You create the therapy so it works for each client.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And the right mix maybe of therapies even for one client.
Exactly. You got to find it just right for each person. And that's what's really fun for us to do, to tweak it.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And maybe even for potential clients who are listening, that you have such an individualized approach to treatment, which is beautiful. So we will have the world where people will have this individualized treatment, and with traditional methods and with gamification and with neurotechnologies, whatever really works for that particular person. Anything that you see in neurotechnologies themselves, any new approaches, any new areas that they can cover. I know that the main focus was for a long time on upper extremity. Now there are some attempts for lower. So what else do you want to see in neurotechnology itself in the future?
Oh, there's so much. So personally, I love working with the brain and on the brain. So anything brain computer interface related, whether it's for the upper extremity, lower extremity, whole body approach, whatever it might be, where I, as a clinician, can give a client feedback on their brain and the areas of brain activity, that would be amazing. That's what I would love to work with more in the future, where I can just say, okay, look, at these graphs over the last 4 weeks, you went from almost no activity in that area to a lot of activity. Let's harness it. I think that would be fun to do.
Yes. And in a way, it's also a feedback for them. Yes.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah.
So we need the feedback as clinicians. I feel it's important to provide the feedback to the client so the client knows they're doing it correctly or not. But then also, it's important for us clinicians to see if it's effective or not. If I work with somebody in the traditional gym setting and I put some e-stim on the hand or I do some muscle tapping and I facilitate movement in the arm, I see some movement. I still don't know if we're actually activating the right area in the brain or not. And with this neurotechnology, it allows me to see, yes, I am activating the right area, or no, I'm not. What else can I do? So I think it's just a really good tool to have in addition to everything that we know to make it better.
Yeah. And I'm sure this will be available in no time. Yeah, well, with the current speed of development of neurotechnologies.
I know. It's so exciting. There's so much good stuff
Yes,
out there.
absolutely. So, two neurotech enthusiasts talking here.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Now, if there are any aspiring occupational therapists listening to us, what advice can you give to them to get into the field of occupational therapy that deals with neurotechnologies, that utilize neurotechnology in their work and their practice? What can they do? Where they can find information? And, what's your suggestion?
I would look at the larger rehab centers, maybe. Larger neuro rehab centers throughout the country have usually higher technology available. Maybe contact those to see if you can start doing an internship to learn more about it. There is a conference that was just recently held. It's called ACRM, is the American Congress of Rehabilitation Medicine. And they have a lot of new devices and new technologies. And then I'm on LinkedIn a lot, where I just connect with other like-minded neuro nerds and just see what they work on.
Yes, thank you so much. And talking about connections and collaborations, I had this question that I wanted to ask you. How do you collaborate with people? How do you connect? And how it helps you and maybe facilitates your practice?
So I love collaboration. I think initially when I first started, I was very insecure and I didn't want to collaborate. Now I love collaborating. It's one of my favorite things to do. I feel it's an opportunity to learn and to look at a certain problem from a different angle and with a different mindset. So whether we collaborate with clinicians of a client, that might have PT or massage therapy or whatever else it might be, and we collaborate with them to work towards the same goal. Or if I collaborate with people in the tech industry to just figure out, what device would be most beneficial for clients. Yeah. I think collaboration is really important. That's where all the creativity comes from, where we drive this field forward through collaboration.
Thank you. And our podcast is called Neurocareers, Doing the Impossible. Maybe there is something that you thought that is impossible for you, maybe in your career, in your practice, which eventually became possible. So what was that? And then your advice of how to make impossible possible.
So I always say anything is possible. If you can think it or dream it, you can do it. For me, again, it evolved naturally. I didn't have a plan. But if I would give guidance to someone, I would say, know what you want to do in therapy, know your strength, and work towards your goal. Definitely have a good plan. I mean, or let it naturally evolve, but then you don't know what you're gonna get. So yeah, I think with curiosity, anything impossible, you can make it possible with creativity and curiosity. Yeah.
Creativity and curiosity. Yes. Thank you. Where do you get inspiration for your creativity? Where all those creative juices are coming from? Or this is just a natural state for you?
It's just natural. Yeah. It's just, I was born this way. My whole family is super artistic. So I've always had this creative energy in me of trying new things and questioning old things and then questioning new things and seeing if something's better. And yeah, that's always been part of me. That's probably what my friend, the speech therapist back then, told me. You're not speech therapy material. You have to be an OT.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and we can see from the podcast that I'm making that creativity goes a long way with the research and also with the finding best possible solutions for clients in clinical settings. It's really very, very important. Some people try boosting it, taking dance classes. Some people are painting. So there are many different ways, but the most important is that to utilize that creativity together with the research and clinical practice. No, thank you so much. And if you can let our listeners know how they can connect with you and get in touch, so to exchange that creativity and thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, of course. So we're on Facebook and Instagram, and then we have a website. It's called the Neuro Hub. Easy as that. That's it. So you can reach out via social media or email us at info@theneurohub.com and get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dorothee. It was a great pleasure to speak to you today. And our listeners most definitely will enjoy this amazing podcast. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for doing what you do. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's inspiring. I think it's important to shine light on something that can be intimidating to many, like neuroscience. So I think it's great what you do, that you shine this light on neuroscience from different angles and allow listeners to get a better understanding of what it can do and not look at it from a more scary area. Yeah, so I think it's great. Thank you for doing it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate your kind words very much. Thank you, Dorothee.